Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. My name is Lauren Fields, and I'm glad you could join us today. Before we get started, I have a few important announcements that I'd like to share. The first is that applications for the SNORI and SNORI Plus programs are due on January 16th. So you have less than a week. You can visit snori.is for more information. We currently also have an INLUS new member drive that's ongoing right now. So to enter, you just need to become a member of INLUS for the first time, or you can renew your lapsed membership if it's been over a year since you've been a member, or you can give the gift of membership and enter into the drawing that way. The new member drawing prize is an autographed copy of Nancy Marie Brown's latest book, Looking for the Hidden Folk. The member drive ends at the end of February, and you can visit inlus.org in order to renew your membership or get some more information. And then finally, the HARPA International Music Academy in the USA, or the acronym is HIMA USA, is currently accepting applications for students to attend the classes August 13th through 19th in Lakeside, Ohio. And if you'd like some more information on that, you can visit HIMA Festival USA for more information. I also have a few housekeeping announcements for today's webinar. As program attendees, you are muted. We welcome questions and we'll answer as many as possible later in the program. To ask a question, please click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen at any time during today's program. If you are on a phone or tablet, that button may be in the upper right corner, or you might need to swipe to find it. This program is being recorded and will be made available on the INLUS website. So to start us off today, I have to tell everyone why I'm super excited to be moderating the talk today. I have known the speakers for the past 2 years through the INLUS Sunday evening virtual reading group. This is a group where participants can practice reading comprehension, speaking through reading aloud, and translation. And 3 of our group members spent some of their summer vacations traveling to Iceland this past year to participate in Icelandic immersion programs. We have 3 panelists today who participated in 2 different programs and are excited to share their experiences with you. So today we are thrilled to have with us Alicia Bjornson from New Jersey, Laurel Latimer from Illinois, and Jim Erdmann from Seattle. Alicia and Laurel both participated in an immersion program at the University Center of the Westfjords in Ísafjörður for 3 weeks in August of this past year. And Jim participated in the International Summer School in Modern Icelandic and Culture at the University of Iceland, Reykjavik, from July 4th to 29th, also of this past summer. So I wanted to thank all 3 of you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. These sound like really incredible experiences, and we've enjoyed hearing bits and pieces about these experiences during our reading group, so we're excited to learn more today. How I'm going to run today's webinar, I'm going to invite each of our speakers to introduce themselves and their respective programs and experiences. So we'll go with Jim first, and then Alicia and Laurel. And then we'll open it up for Q&A. And as a reminder, you can enter questions for the panelists in the Q&A box on your screen at any time. And I will moderate that question and answer session. So to start us off, I'd like our panelists to introduce themselves. Please tell us what inspired you to participate in these programs and describe the program and your experience. So Jim, we'll start with you and I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Okay,
good enough. What inspired me was I don't have the same background everybody else does as far as having Icelandic roots and heritage. I got called to go represent my church for a couple of years back in 1978. At that time, I never knew anything about Iceland. But at the time, I was definitely immersion. I learned as much of the language as I could, and I kind of thought about it for a while. And then in the last few years, I've gotten interested. And what got me interested in this class is the fact that I'd heard about it before, and every year I would think about it. And I think, well, I want to sign up, I want to do this, but I never would. And so finally I realized not getting any younger, so it's time to do something about it. So with that said, can you see the screen here now?
Yep, we can.
Okay, so this is the website for the international studies programs. So if I click on that, so I just want to go through some. I just want to go through some of the what we can see here. If you're interested in the class in Reykjavik, now it's described right here. I think the most important thing to note is that if you're interested in that class, you got to apply soon. You got to apply by February 15th. And so that's kind of an important thing. Put these pictures away so I see what I'm doing. But anyway, some of the things that are important to know is that again, first things first, you go onto this website and there's a link to the application. You want to get your application in before February 15th. The organization, they take about 40 students for the on-site class. There's also an opportunity for about 10 people to take it via Zoom. Of course, there's nothing like being in Iceland, so do that one. But so the idea is you apply. Once they have the list of the applicants, then the next step you have to go through is right before that, you can see here on the screen, there's a prerequisite to take the course Icelandic Online 1, and there's a link to it right here. I won't click on it because my computer would probably not like it. But and maybe most of you are probably familiar with that anyway. It's something that you could probably go through in a couple of days with the amount of experience each of you have already. It's free of charge. You can complete it in short order, and you make sure you fill out your application. Then after that, they're once they have gone through things, you have to take a test, and it's an online test. It's kind of explained right here. The placement test takes about an hour. It's not terribly complex. Of course, you do it at your own leisure. It's all online, and once you applied and they're ready to issue the test, you'll get an email talking about it. Typical Icelandic people, typical Icelandic organization, there's not a lot of detail until they think you need it. And I'm sure you're all kind of used to that in a lot of ways. So don't panic if you wanted to get in and do this. So the course, they give you about 80 hours of instruction in 4 weeks' time. It's all done on campus. It's really nice. Let me flip over. We flip over to, did my little PowerPoint thingy come up?
Yep, we're seeing it in slide mode.
Okay, good. It's ready to go. All right.
Yep.
All right. So there's there's the information. So the building off to the right is the building that we had our classes in. The wonderful thing about University of Iceland is it's so small, but it's a university. So over on the left, there's the cafeteria and the bookstore and all of the things that you might want to go see during time. And the classroom building is just right behind that building. So very nice, very well organized as far as that goes. But on the first day of class, well, there's our class. You can see I'm not in the picture because I didn't want to go freeze. Oh, my daughter and her husband came into town, so we went out somewhere else. This is our whole class, and it looked like a big class. But the way they do it is once you've taken your placement test, you divide the group up into two. And people who maybe have showed a little bit more experience or knowledge or whatever you want to call it, I put in one class, and then beginning class was filled up. I didn't meet a single person there who was upset with the placement they got. So with that said, that it worked out really well. And so as part of the class, see, was there anything else I wanted to say there? What I really liked about the class that I was put in, because was the teacher, basically, he taught the whole thing in Icelandic. You know, he understood he was talking to foreigners and people who were at various levels, but he carried on in very clear Icelandic. Like there's our teacher right there in the middle. He's actually a British guy, teaches Icelandic at the University of Edinburgh. Very knowledgeable and very, very, very good. You couldn't tell he was a foreigner, at least we couldn't. So with that said, one of the things that I was going to throw out too was our participation in the you're not really a student at the university, but they give you a little card. So over at the cafeteria, you can get a discount on the hot meals that they feed you there at lunch. When you decide you're going to go, the reason I was bringing up the food is you can have the university give you places to stay. I chose not to do that just because I was a little older than most, and I didn't. Anyway, I knew somebody with an Airbnb, so I just stayed there. And I got a bus pass so I could travel around back and forth. The bus pass was a great thing for me to have, and that way I got around Reykjavik without having to worry about buying bus tickets or trying to figure out how to pay for the bus. Now they don't have bus tickets. You have to use your phone for everything. What else was kind of important that I was thinking? So going back to the order of things, you need to register, you need to complete Icelandic online, you do the placement test, and then they start to let you know where you're going to be. At that point, they ask you if you're going to stay in, university provided housing or whatever. And again, it seems quite informal, but by the time class started, we had everything we needed to know. Just as this time's about up, but just as a note, here was our schedule. What I wanted to point out with this is we started our day every day, Monday through Friday at 9:30, which is a pretty good time of day to start. Wish my job started like that. And then we ran pretty much Icelandic lessons until about 2 o'clock. At 2 o'clock, we had guest lecturers who come in on certain days. We learned about Icelandic language. We learned about the sagas. We learned about Icelandic music, kind of history of the language. There was an opportunity where somebody come in and talked about current and historic Icelandic writers. It was really, really good, really entertaining. We had an opportunity to go run around the city. They brought us a bus. We had a couple of Saturday opportunities to go out. This was all part of the plan. So we were busy. There was lots of time open for exploring and doing things. Here's some pictures from some of the trips that they took us on. The National Museum and then, of course, the White House. Just things, if you've been, you've seen all these. It's yours truly. I got everybody at the end of our class, we had this talk for 5 minutes about some place we were familiar with. So you see the look on my face. I really knew what I was doing. Of course, then you get to go downtown. You can do what you like to do, which for me is ice cream and hot dogs. I didn't go to the head shop. So I was just on this. And of course, the cats were everywhere. It was fun to walk around town and see the cats. This one here was cute because it's kind of a limited parking space. 30 minutes max. But the cat's been there all day. So, what else? Oh, and the birds. It's summertime in Iceland. Birds were everywhere. And I had so much fun. Bird watching. The ravens are massive. You could pick up a small child, take them away. This was cool. So this book is just okay. My time is pretty much up, but this book was kind of outside of our classroom in the building we were in. There was a table. It was always stocked with books. These were books that people were just getting rid of. They would bring them down. They pile them on there. Most of them were Icelandic or in Icelandic. And you could take whatever you wanted, and that was just really neat. That was one of the books I brought home. I think it was labeled as having been printed in 1952 or something. So, then again, I rode the bus. There's nothing better to get around Reykjavik bus. So and that was kind of my experiences there. So I will stop sharing and turn the time over to others.
Thanks so much, Jim, and thanks for the pictures, especially of the cats. Always enjoy those.
Somebody might like that.
All right, thanks so much. And I'm going to now turn to Laurel to tell us about your program, and Laurel and Alicia will divide their time, and then we'll go into the Q&A. And as a reminder, you can put questions in the question and answer box at any time, and we'll address them soon. Go ahead, Laurel.
Hi. Yeheti Laurel. The reason for my interest in immersion was, number one, I went on Snorri Plus in 2018. Number two, I took INLUS's David Johnson level 1 Icelandic online and loved it, and even took a crack at level 2. I didn't think I was ready to go overseas, but I figured, well, like Jim said, not getting any younger. So, and I'd done immersion in France before, and I just thought, I can do this. So I'm going to share my screen and tell you about this 3-week program in Ísafjörður, and then Alicia can follow up with probably sharing some other details. It was absolutely phenomenal. Okay, let's just see here. Are we looking at, are we good?
Yep,
Okay.
We can see it.
I'm going to take you on a visual tour of my immersion trip, beginning on this prop plane from Reykjavik, landing at a small airport with very efficient transportation to the town of Ísafjörður, which is in the northwest of Iceland and the largest town in the West Fjords. A population of a whopping, I think, just under 3,000. The views, Utsinith, the history, Sagan, the mountains, Fjöllin, the light, Ljósið, the boats, Bátana, the clouds, skiing, the colors, Litirnir, the fog, Þokunni, the art, Listin, the rocks, Steinana, the rain, Rigningen, the sun, Sólin, the water, Vatnið, the words, Orðin. I just thought I would prove that I actually learned something while I was there. The word for housing is húsnæði. And that was probably the most challenging thing of this program, was finding that. You could stay in a hotel or a hostel, but from my experience going to a foreign country, I feel like it's always preferred to live on the economy, I guess, and do your own grocery shopping and do your own cooking and meet people in the streets. And not that you wouldn't do that in a hotel, but you do it a lot more if you're renting a room in a house, which I did. The university provided a Facebook page, and you just kind of get in there and start making contacts. So this was my street, Silfurgata, and that was my awesome view. This is the front door of the University Center. I think Alicia is going to show us a picture of the actual building, but this was very comforting when I first got there. Of course, I had to run it through Google Translate to see that it said, Icelandic friendly place. Here we speak Icelandic to people who are learning the language. Yes, we speak Icelandic. Yes, we speak slowly and clearly. Yes, we repeat. This is our 3-week schedule of classes and events, and you can see, similar to Jim's, in the morning you've got a lot of grammar and phonetics, but then as the days go on and the weeks go on, this is 3 different weeks, you get into more fun stuff. Not that grammar isn't fun, but you use what you learn with some amazing activities that this program is just so, the way they set it up is just so amazing. And I will show you some pictures of this program. This is the head guy, his name is Oli, and he's the director of the language program. This is the room that we met in. It's comfortably seats 20 people, working in groups, lots of visual aids, coffee machine and kitchen right next door, very friendly and helpful staff, and a beautiful library and lounge. It was really, really comfortable. Our grammar teacher, Aki, used lots of visual aids, video, auditory materials to make learning really efficient and fun of grammar that normally is just stick your nose in a grammar book. But this was, we all thought he was a great teacher. Our phonetics teacher, Mark, was absolutely passionate about phonetics. And if you don't know what a fricative is, you will find out what it is by going on this program and more. And he was just amazing at teaching such a technical subject, but very necessary if you really want to speak the language well. The director of the entire university, his name is Peter, and he would pop in and out of classes and such, but he gave this awesome lecture on the Gisli Saga. And we got to know him pretty well. This awesome woman, Anska, came from a music school to tell us about the music of the West Fjords and to play us the music of the West Fjords, which was totally awesome. We did really neat lessons like board games and other things that really lent themselves to very collaborative learning and talking to each other, which was really good. We had class in the kitchen. We learned how to make pannukakor. We had class in a kaffihús, and there's Alicia, and there's Aki. He was our grammar teacher, and it really was for 3 weeks. I mean, it ran the gamut from classroom stuff to very practical opportunities to talk. I would say that a large part of why this program is so unique is because of this flyer, where you see this flyer in shop windows means that the business has agreed to participate in the Icelandic Friendly Town Promise, which states, we promise to speak Icelandic to people who are learning or practicing. We speak slowly. We speak clearly. We repeat. We simplify. We use gestures. And as if that isn't enough to welcome all of us, this barcode scan, you can scan into your phone, and it's like a cheat sheet with common questions you'd ask in businesses and such in the event of a panic attack and you forgot everything you learned that day. And right here's the bookstore. Right here is that promise. So this was a business that made that promise. And Oli, who is the director, took us on this great tour of the town very early in the program and pointed out all these different businesses, told us who was involved in this promise. And then that really set the stage for some amazing activities, which I will tell you about. Office supply store, grocery store. They had 2 resale stores, amazing, a yarn store, tourist visitor information centers. This is the old hospital that they've turned into a library and a culture house, history museum, fish shop. And this was all in preparation for something called a búðarat, which is loosely translated as shop rally. And we all went out in groups, and they gave us like a treasure hunt map, and we had to go into these businesses and find out like the cost of the cost of a pound of apples, or the names of the shop owners, or what animals are found on the Hornstrather Island. And it really made us go in and talk to people and look and write things down. And it was a great learning exercise. So also learned that there is actually a pannukakor with protein if you really want to be healthy while you're eating them. So these are just pictures of going around in this treasure hunt and looking for things. Another activity was this guided tour of this local history / fishing museum in Ísafjörður, which was just fascinating. And in the evenings, we do sort of it wasn't obligatory, but you could go to movies. And I thought it was really, really amazing that the teachers in the afternoon classes would basically tell us what movie was playing, and they'd give us terminology so that when we went to these Icelandic movies, we would, not be clueless. So it was very, very systematic in that way, the teaching and the learning. Okay, we went to see live theater performances. There was a festival in Suðureyri of one man, one woman acts, historic theater in Suðureyri. Of course, we had to get beer on intermission. We went to Gisli Saga rural theater with an actor who created this amazing play about the Gisli Saga. Of course, you could go swimming if you wanted to. You could hear music, hlusta á tónlist. And what I did was I walked around and took pictures of all signs and stuff, and that's how I learned a lot of vocabulary. And this is how I felt at the end of the day. I've worked all day long and want to go home and sleep. But if you actually didn't have to and you wanted to go out with your classmates and have a beer and celebrate everything you learned during the day, we did plenty of that too. And I'm almost done. The culminating class activity was to go to the local brewery and do a meet and greet. And you can see here, Alicia is right here. It was locals came in and helped us get through our conversations, and we asked them questions, they asked us questions, and it was scary, but it was just the best way to sort of wrap it all up. And our final day, getting our certificates and having soup and ice cream, and also learning how to do this amazing national sport of Glima wrestling. And I think Alicia got in on that. I think I'm over time, so I'll stop here, but it was really the most amazing program. I've done immersion programs before, and this was the way it was set up, the way it was so systematic from sort of start to finish was they thought this out really well. And I'm happy to talk about more about it if anyone else wants more information. I'll turn it over to Alicia, and I will stop my share.
All right, Alicia, and I will mute myself and share your share screen so people can see your photos.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here tonight.
Technical difficulties here.
We're doing okay. Well, this is the sign that the class, the school gave to us, Ég tala bara íslensku, which says, I only speak Icelandic. This is our class. We were 20 people from all over the world. It really was just lovely trying to learn what other people were doing. Laurel and I, our commonality is that we're both from a town outside of Chicago and went to the same high school. We've known of each other, but we had to literally meet each other in Ísafjörður. And there was another a German gentleman who was the student in the class, who's also living in our hometown. So there are three of us from the same program unintentionally that we have to meet here. But people from Germany, Norway, via New York, 2 women from Japan, a young man from Iceland, whose father I've known for many years, but learning the language so that they can, either they are living in Iceland, want to maybe work in Iceland, are spending time, are married to one woman was married to an Icelander, another woman from Northern Ireland was just traveling, and people where language was their specialty. So we'll go to the next one. These are our instructors. The man next to Peter Weiss on the far right, Mark, who did a lot of our grammar, he was a Dane and just had a tremendous amount of fun. And Oli was with one of his small kids who was always around coming to the opportunity. And the university was really just very comfortable. We'll go to the next picture. Now we get to see the panakaka that we were all making. We actually had to learn the language and the recipe in Icelandic to have a discussion and then to make it, and having an opportunity to share the fruits of our labor. Go to the next one. Again, the signs that we had when we entered into the community. And this was really neat. Everybody in the village wanted us to succeed. So that was a little less daunting for how nervous we felt, perhaps until the end, as Lauren said it. We did what they called speed Icelandic, which was based on speed dating, but you rotated through a room, talking to people from the community. Where are you from? How did you get here? Well, tell us about what you do for work. And that little exchange over a course of 8 minutes. And once you get through the first or second one of those experiences, it just becomes much easier. We'll go to the next one. The front of the university, while we were there, Laurel and I came back from a weekend, and the whole building had been painted. I don't have a picture from before, but it really is, wow, everybody was late because we couldn't find the building, was what we told the instructor. We'll go to the next one. This is the interior of the courtyard, and this is what the exterior of the building had looked like. And you can see some of the people working with the Glima and just spending time as they're working. So we'll go to the next one. Laurel and I, and another young woman from Manuela. We'll go to another photo. The center of the town. I think one of the things that was really striking is how populated part of the community would be. There might be 3,000 people in Ísafjörður, but every day there were cruise ships coming into the community. And I think what was so important was that people knew that we weren't just there for a day trip, and that people would help us when we were going to the grocery store or going to a bookshop. You wanted to look at a dictionary, you wanted to find something new, maybe a postcard. And that was really fun, especially on the scavenger hunt that we got to do. I found for me, it was easier to go in and buy postcard stamps to be able to ship back, and postcards of the area, and then have the interaction. And so that was a little more fluid and dynamic. We'll go to the next photograph, please. This is the view from the harbor, the Poland, and getting an opportunity on one of the days where there was absolutely no wind, no rain. The reflection was just so lovely. We'll go to the next. For housing, as Laurel said, this was a little bit of a difficulty, but I was traveling with a friend and his son, David, who was in the program, and we opted to camp because we literally could not find housing. You want to make certain that as you prepare the program to apply, that you start looking for housing right away. We started in spring, and Laurel and I were both trying to navigate how we would end up staying, and this was the option that we had. It was affordable, it was beautiful. We were 20 minutes away from town, but it also meant that it wasn't as conventional. It was not at all what I expected, and you had to be open for the adventure and opportunity. So we'll go to the next one. Now, the real surprise, Iceland has 350,000 people in the program, and I'm in this little cafe at the end of my last day, and this woman comes up to me and says, "Are you Alicia Bjornson?" And I go, "Yes," and I'm recognizing the voice, trying to imagine, and who am I speaking to but Björn Sigurbjörns, our instructor from INLS Part 2. And what was so funny about this was she was in visiting. We knew we wouldn't meet in Reykjavik, didn't think we'd see each other at all, but she was staying in the next town over and had been in helping a young man with his knitting. And because we were in each other's iPhones, it popped up and said, "Hey, she needs your Wi-Fi." And that was just a really funny, funny connection. And we'll go to the next photo. One of the things is I have Icelandic heritage, and over the years, from when I was in college at Mount Holyoke, I had an opportunity to start learning more. I first came to Iceland in 2007 with Canadian cousins. And this is our common ancestor, Bjorn Gunnarsson. And one of the things to manage to do over spending time learning about family and culture between another trip on Snorri Plus, which I would highly recommend, was the continuation after completing INLS's language programs, which I began during pandemic, said, let's do something fun and a challenge where you can carve the time to do this. And on my last day before leaving Iceland, I was able to go find his grave, and that will be the last picture, where he actually returned to Iceland from emigrating to Canada, found that he really missed the country and came back. And this is in Calfitchurn Cemetery. So again, thank you for the opportunity to share, and I turn it back to Laurel.
Thank you so much. Really great pictures. I'm stuck in PowerPoint here for a second. Okay. So we've had a few questions come in. Really great hearing about the programs that you did and your experiences. And so one question for Jim is, it looked like you had about 40 people in your program. Can you speak a little bit about the demographic of who were the people doing your program, and were they mainly young folks out of college or college students? What was kind of the proportion breakdown also in terms of age of people doing the program?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a point I wanted to bring up. I'm glad you asked the question. I would dare say I was the oldest, and for the most part, the demographic was mainly young people. There were a lot of people who were there who, at one point or another were studying or had studied linguistics. And maybe that's just a nature of the fact that it was in Reykjavik and at the university. There were people asking questions about grammar that I didn't understand. But at the same time, there was a good share of people probably with a similar background that I did that just were interested. I know on the website when they're signing up, they say it's meant for people who are college students, but it also says that if you're interested, you would be considered. That's how I got in. Again, I would suspect that the majority of the group was younger, under 30, and as a pack, they kind of lived in the same place because they had chosen for the university to get them places to stay, and they kind of moved about as a pack. So I was kind of on the outside, but I kind of liked it that way because that gave me a whole month in Reykjavik to explore parks, hiking places that I'd never been before. And I couldn't stay up as late as the kids could anyway. So it was fun. Yeah, so I don't know if that exactly answers the question, but it was a little bit. I'm really happy to have heard Laurel and Alicia's experiences because I want to go there next year because it seems so more laid back and so much more fun. In Reykjavik, they're going to talk to you in English because you're American or a foreigner. They know that. And you didn't have a little sign saying, I want to speak Icelandic, or a shirt. They just saw you coming and yeah. So that sounded like a really unique thing. So
I agree very
that's
much
what I
so.
have to say.
Well, it sounds like the programs aren't mutually exclusive. So if you do go to Ísafjörður next year, Jim, we'll hope you'll come back and give a webinar about it next year too.
I can't cop what those guys did. That's good.
We have another question who came in who from a gentleman who's interested in making a life in Iceland and getting a job there. So he has an employer maybe lined up in Ísafjörður, and he wanted to know what sort of culture shock coming from the city to living in a community like Ísafjörður. And do you feel that participation in these programs could be helpful for networking and connecting with employers in the town and in the country? And I don't know, Alicia or Laurel, who wants to take that first?
I'll take that. I think what's really significant about this program is that the size of the community is manageable. And because there has been the agreement and promise to work with people, you're getting a language experience where people are wanting to share and wanting, it may not be absolutely perfect, but you will be understood. And there are normal ways of being able to explain, this is what you want in multiple ways in language, and utilizing it. And for one of the classmates, David, his union paid for his course experience. So they want you to be able to be comfortable and be competent in what you're doing. So I think that works out very well. Laurel, you might want to add something to that.
You're muted, Laurel.
I don't know, the peacefulness, the quiet, the being away, being in a rural setting to me was helped me to focus on the task. And it did seem like a lot of people in the town were kind of like, I don't know how you feel about this, Alicia, but I didn't see everyone walking around on their phones. And you do need your
Yeah.
phone to, oh yeah, you want to Google Translate something. But I really felt like there was much more of a sort of a welcoming, you could go into a coffee shop and talk to people. You didn't feel like you had to go and sit in the corner. Maybe being from Chicago, like anything would be better than Chicago, but it's just, in terms of the hustle bustle and just like, now I can't focus on what I'm doing. It was just so peaceful in those walks around. And to me, it was therapeutic and it helped my brain work to be in this peaceful setting that was, I don't know, friendly too. I'm envious of this person who's has the opportunity to go there, and absolutely yes, for 3 weeks. I mean, talk about packing a punch. This program for 3 weeks, you can learn so much if you have a little bit of a good foundation.
Yeah, I think to sort of segue up into this as well, because we did the 3-week program that was 90 hours of coursework. I think the other feature, since I was staying outside of Isafjorda and even a smaller community, every morning I would get up, I'd go to the pool, then hit the hot pot, have coffee, talk to the neighbors, and then start to get your mind into the Icelandic. And once they realized that we were not there just for a weekend to come through, they were like, "Oh, so how's class going? What are you doing? Hey, you're running late. You better get back to school." And then coming in, I would think the big challenge for somebody from a bigger town might be, what are winters like in Isafjorda? If you're staying there year round, if that's where you're going to be based. You could already, during the time that we were there at 10:30 at night, the sun was setting. And it's some of the most beautiful, glorious evenings that I think I've ever seen. Be prepared for the weather. Make sure you're dressing appropriately. That's the bigger thing. You have to bring what you need. Over-the-counter medicines, all your electronics, those are wicked expensive there. So make sure that you're bringing just what you need, not more.
Great advice. Thanks. A reminder to everyone to put any questions you have in the Q&A. But I've got a question we'll start with Jim. How I know that you have had some immersion experience from your past going into this program, but how much should someone expect to know before applying to a program like this? You mentioned that kind of your class was separated into kind of two different tracks based on learning level. Do you have a sense there, if someone's going through, for example, the INLUS language courses, does that set you up for being prepared to come into this? And I'm going to ask the same question of Alicia and Laurel so you can prepare.
I think the stuff that we've done through INLUS would be good for you. There's no reason you shouldn't sign up and go through the process. And I think that to set you up for the beginner class, the teacher in the beginning class she was Icelandic. She was spot on. The kids loved her. They followed her around and there was lots to learn. If you have some background, though, I'll tell you what, talk about immersion when the teacher is speaking Icelandic the whole time. And it's very, very seldom that he would switch out. Now, the person I sat next to, she was just barely 18 years old. It's funny, the oldest guy and the youngest girl in the class were sitting next to each other, and we ended up working together on our little assignments and stuff. And boy, was she smart. And she was picking up the grammar, and she was making charts. I was jealous of her ability to be studious. So she sat through the entire class and learned a lot about grammar. Didn't speak very much. But again, I wouldn't let the fact that maybe you don't know as much as you think you know. I'm going to say I think you know more than you think you know. And the beginning class at the university would have been great. It would have been a lot of fun because I think those guys had a lot more fun than we did, because we got hammered within the end of the first week with conjugation of verbs, and they gave us homework over a weekend. And even knowing what I thought I knew was a big job. But again, if you decided you didn't want to get the college credit for it, because there is college credit at the university, if you don't want the college credit, you don't have to do anything. But be there and enjoy just the environment and listening to the language, and being able to hang out with people like those guys were saying, that our class was from all over the world. I spent a lot of time talking with a lady from Indonesia who had married an Icelandic guy, and they lived in Sweden. So she came to the class to learn to speak better with her husband, and she was a lot of fun. But she'd come all the way she'd come from Sweden. But the other thing about the group is that while we were there, we had a WhatsApp group, and we still daily, there's communications going on back and forth between one another. It turned out to be a fun group, and a group that I think that we're going to stay in touch with for a long time. Now I know somebody in Australia. If I ever go, I'm gonna bug her. Hey, but yeah. So I think that might answer the question, and then some. What do you guys have to say, Alicia and Laurel?
I'm actually putting into the chat. It's too long to read, but we were it's a little confusing when you look at the website. So don't get, you can contact me and Alicia for sure for details, because we worked a lot of stuff out, kind of like, looking back over our shoulder. Oh yeah, that's where that. So we went on the A1, A2, and I'm putting into the chat the prerequisites for A1 and A2. I think A1 would be the 1-week crash course, but don't just go for a week, because you'll just be like getting warmed up. Try to go for the 3. If you're really going to do this, I feel like you should go for 3. It's going to be uncomfortable. No, I wasn't ready for this at all. But if you are up for the challenge and you like to get your feet wet, and it's so much more than language. It is such a cultural experience. And I would say, let me just hit send on this. I don't know how this is going to come out because it came up. You can look at this later, but
I think this just goes to the panelists, so we'll have to make it available later. Okay. But essentially, the European language system is letter-based with letters and numbers. We know a little bit about this from our webinar with Caritas, who developed her book for language learners of Icelandic, and targeting at a specific language learning level. So that's good to know. You're on the early side of learning Icelandic, but the course will get you through to kind of toward the end of early to intermediate.
Well, and with that said, I was just going to interject. With that said, there were people in the university course that had taken it before as well. So so like Laura was saying, don't not do it because you think you don't know enough. You can't always do it over. Obviously, it's a financial thing, but maybe.
So I have a few more questions I want to try to squeeze in before the end of our time. And one was, I think, Laurel, you might be able to answer this, and Jim also. We all love Iceland. And so how much traveling were you able to do while also completing the program? And could I combine one of these studies programs with a tourism-based trip to Iceland? So Laurel, you want to start, and then maybe Jim?
My husband and I thought about either traveling beforehand or after, and we ended up with after, and it was so phenomenal because I had all this I want to go out and use this stuff, use what I learned. And so it was perfect for him to come in and drive up to Ísafjörður after my trip, and then we spent 10 days driving around the West Fjords, hiking and stuff. It was great because I had this comfort level with the culture and the language that made the tourist element so much more fulfilling, I guess. I don't know if that answers that, but you guys can jump in.
From my perspective, while I was there, my daughter and her husband came over. She does this TikTok stuff, and so she's kind of has to do stuff. And so she travels a lot anyway. They came over, like I said, we took off on a Friday afternoon, and they rented a car, and we went down all the way down to Vik and saw everything in between with them and did some hiking. So if you're looking for, day trips, like I said, most of the classes in Reykjavik were done by 2:00, and then you've got the rest of the day. As far as making a vacation out of it, you're in class for 4 weeks, so that would be a big summertime for you. But I felt like it would have been there's plenty of time to see a lot of stuff, interspersed with the class. She got basically the weekend too, Saturday, Sunday.
Question just came in. And I think we've got kind of 3 different transportation perspectives here on the call. The question is, would you recommend having a car if you're doing the 3-week course, recommending or either renting or borrowing a car? So Laurel, I see you nodding. Do you want to start?
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you can afford it, because you are a little isolated there. That not to say, like my room, I scored on rental because I got my roommates were all graduate students there, and they had transportation, so I didn't need it. If you can rent a house with someone that has transportation, there's a lot of sharing going on. Like the weekend would come around and we would all be like, okay, who's going to rent the car? And we're all going to jump in and try to get as much done as we can. It's expensive. But to be able to get out of the town on the weekends, particularly, there's so many neighboring villages like Sudaveri and Thingeri, and it's just amazing. Like you have to see them while you're there. So absolutely, positively, if you can. But sharing is very much done because a lot of people are on student finances. Alicia, what do you think?
Oh, you're on mute. And I know you had the camper van, and how easy was it to get around in the camper van?
Well, that was the primary mode of transportation for us, but we drove up. And one of the really important things to do is when you leave the United States, you will lose a day so that you arrive, and you want to be able to have time. Isafjorda is 5 hours away from Reykjavik. So if you're flying, make sure, and Laurel can probably address this, that you come into Keflavik, but the airplane trip is actually out of the center of Reykjavik. So we met with the people that I was traveling with, and we drove to Isafjorda. And it made you're probably looking, I think our vehicle was diesel, whether or not you have gas and such, you're looking at almost $9 a gallon since they're selling it by the liter, making sure that you budget for that. And taking care of, I think, did that answer your question?
Yeah, and we know, Jim, you mentioned the bus, so it sounds like that was your primary way of getting around, but you also had a car for part of it.
Yeah, and that's probably the hardest part for me on this whole trip was organizing, trying to get through Strætó app to get the bus pass figured out. Once I got the bus pass, it was good for the entire month, and it cost me about $60. I got my money's worth. And then, like I said, my kids came in and they rented a car. And if you wanted to see something, and I like what Carl was talking about. I didn't even think about that. It's just rent a car for a couple of days and then take it back. But the bus was great. You can get anywhere within Reykjavik you want. Reykjavik being a relatively large area compared to Ísafjörður. I just would look at the map and I'd see a little green spot that I'd never been, and I'd get on the bus and I'd figure out how to get to it. And I'd get out and I'd wander around until it was cold, and I'd go back home. And so, yeah, I think the bus was a good thing if you're in Reykjavik. And if you didn't need to leave Reykjavik, there's no need for a car. Most of the people in our class didn't have a car. Just one. There was one real rich guy. He was a lawyer from London, and he had his car shipped to Iceland so he would have transportation.
Yeah.
So there you go. You can do that.
Sure, if that's in the budget.
Well, for one of our students, she had her car come from Germany, but that was what she stated. She was the other person who camped. And so that's how she maneuvered going everywhere.
And we all got to know her really well.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we are about out of time. I could keep talking to you guys for another hour, but I don't want to hold up everyone else who maybe wants to go to bed. So I would like to maybe like one line from each of you, and I'll let you pick what you want to answer. What's next for you in your Icelandic learning journey, or do you have any advice for someone who is an Icelandic language student? So I'll give you a second to think of that. While you think of that, I will announce that if you'd like to learn more from any of our panelists or to ask questions of the panelists that you might think of later, you can reach out to the INLUS at info@inlus.org, and we'll be able to facilitate a response or a connection. So real quick, in our final minutes, what's next for you, or what advice do you have for someone who might be interested? And we'll start with Alicia.
I think what's really important is to continue working with our fellow students that we've known here in INLUS. And I look forward to reading group. I think getting a chance to hear the Icelandic spoken and read and work with each other as a collaborative effort helps us learn better. And hopefully I'll be able to return to Iceland soon.
Laurel.
I would say don't compare yourself to anyone but your own self and your own progress, because everyone is on this journey for a different reason. Everyone has different interests, and it's so easy to say, oh, I don't know how to talk about food, or oh, I don't know how to talk about animals, or it doesn't matter, just just keep improving on your own. I intend to go back. I'd like to go back and do the A1, A2 again, because I feel like I was kind of on the low end of that program, but it's going to be uncomfortable, and don't compare yourself to other people, and just enjoy the ride.
Jim.
Okay, yeah. So next for me is tomorrow night. I'm signed up for the fitness class, and I'm looking forward to that. But I was thinking as far as, see, now I got myself off track. Maybe I'll just end with that. Oh, but I was going to say, listen to the radio. I always preach that when we're in class. I said, just turn on the radio, groove, listen to channel 1, just listen to it. It's noise in the beginning, but you'll be surprised. You will really be surprised. A month, 6 weeks from now, you're understanding words. Or if you're not understanding words, you're picking up your dictionary and looking up the words that you now recognize because they keep saying them because they're talking about a subject. You hear the same word over and over and think, I got to know what they're talking about. Look up that one word, it'll open up a whole new vista for you, and it'll make you think, okay, now what's the next word I'm going to hear? Listen to the radio.
Great advice, everyone. And as a reminder for those of us still on, we will reconvene our Sunday reading group. It is a volunteer group to continue our reading of Árstíðir. We're going to resume that on January 29th. And that's a reminder to me that I need to send out our reading assignments sometime before then. So I'll work on that. But I want to thank our panelists again. Before we end today, I want to let everyone know about our next program. Our next webinar is an Author's Corner book launch on Tuesday, January 31 at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So same time as tonight, or 5 p.m. Pacific, depending on your time zone, with Margaret Wilson, who is the author of Woman, Captain, Rebel, the extraordinary true story of a daring Icelandic sea captain, about Iceland's first female fishing boat captain, Þuríður Einarsdóttir. So Alicia, Laurel, and Jim, thank you again so much for speaking with us today, and thank you to all of the attendees for joining.